Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey!
A lot kicking off this week on Raw and SmackDown. I feel like, as it always is on the road to WrestleMania, the things that I guess we touch on first are the changes to the card and the matches and the feuds that have led up to it. And I'm going to kick off with the Bloodline. We already kind of knew that the tag team match was going to happen. Now it's 100% locked. It's your Night 1 main event. If Rhodes and Rollins win, all members of the Bloodline, gotta get this right, will be barred from ringside during the match. If Reigns and The Rock win, then the championship match will be held under Bloodline rules. Which, as far as I'm aware, is just a no DQ, no holds bar, anything kind of goes.
In all honesty, the better option is for the Bloodline to win.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that having Cody and Seth win there makes any sense is if The Rock then decides to abuse his power and make himself the special guest referee. Which he's already throwing his power around anyway, so it wouldn't be outside the range of possibilities. But I just think it'd be more interesting to have the stack. If this is the moment that you're going to go full bore with Cody, stack the deck against him as much as possible. This has the potential to being that WrestleMania 14 Austin crowning moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the odds were stacked against him in going into that match because you had all of DX plus a outside enforcer who was quote unquote aligned with DX. And he came out on top.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes a whole lot of sense. Like, I've seen people mirroring it to something like Avengers Endgame, where you know it's going to be just overbooked to HE double hockey sticks. There'll be people interfering, there'll be people on the other side, and it's just going to be an absolute cluster, but an entertaining cluster to watch.
Yeah, and in this case, I think it's one of those things where the story dictates that it needs to be overbooked.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we do complain about stuff being overbooked. That's fair. But sometimes some stories just require it to go bananas. And this is, I think, one of those stories that's going to require everything to come out. Obviously, we know that the people that will most likely help Cody is going to be Jimmy, maybe Sami if he's not too beat up.
Depends what night his match is on.
Yeah. Potentially Seth, although there's always the possibility of Seth turning on him. They even on the Monday night sit-down program, they kind of hinted at the possibility of that.
I think Seth will be involved in the overbooking of the match. Which side he's on, that's a better question.
Yeah. For all we know, The Rock's involvement could be in question. I mean, we assume he's full on board with the Bloodline. But what if he's a mole planted there by Cody? And that's why Cody was quote unquote willing to give up his spot to begin with.
Yeah.
And that Rock had to go so deep undercover that not even Cody would be sure of it.
I think it's I'm with you in terms of the outcome, right? I feel like if the Bloodline are barred from, I guess there's storylines for both ways, but if the Bloodline are barred, you're probably just going to see, a new member of the Bloodline who technically wasn't barred, or Seth Rollins interfere, or something like that. I would much rather the overbooked, entertaining mess of Bloodline rules, and you're not restricted by anything. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, the last Bloodline Rules match was pretty dang entertaining. Jay versus Roman, so why not? Yeah, it's just there's a lot of things that could happen, and almost every one of them are plausible. That's the crazy thing about this storyline is there's not much that you could suggest, short of like an alien invasion in the middle of the match, that wouldn't be believable. And since it's pro wrestling, it's halfway believable.
I'd believe an alien invasion. That's one way to have Roman Reigns finally dethroned. The aliens were Cody crybabies.
Yeah. This is just going to be, it's going to be pure fun. It's also another thing, this segment on SmackDown also illustrates another problem with Seth. He was over during this promo when he got serious and basically played the Punk card of getting back Rock from where he was basically just chide and stuff from the press conference. So he got his receipt in a verbal way. But then you had him on Raw with Drew, and he was the goofy self that he's always normally is, and then people don't gravitate to him on that. He has to sing his song to get any reaction, and there's a big disconnect on that because Seth is a great wrestler, but this character that he has, nobody can relate to. Nobody can relate to the outfits he wears. Nobody can relate to him basically being a quote-unquote D-bag, but still being a good guy D-bag.
Yeah, I think...
This character is supposed to be a heel, but because the song got over, they made him a face. And now the song is all that there is when it's not dealing with Cody.
Yeah, for me, the outcomes of the 3 matches in terms of telling a complete story, it makes way more sense for the Bloodline to come out on top on night 1, Seth to lose his title to Drew in the opener, and then Cody after the overbook nightmare in the main event to come out on top. I think that's the complete story of WrestleMania, and Drew has been trying to hammer it into Seth to, stop being distracted by the Bloodline. Serious up. Face me with everything you've got. And Seth is not heeding that warning, and I think it's gonna be his downfall.
Yeah, I think it will be. Another problem with the match is that it's a match we've seen multiple times in the last few months.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why people are more interested in our Intercontinental title that's been at least halfway, at the very least, halfway announced. There's a possibility they could add something in it due to circumstances, but it's more the Intercontinental title match is more interesting and is, quite frankly, more important than the World Heavyweight Championship match.
Yeah, we can transition to it. Gunther's title would be on the line at WrestleMania. We had ourselves a gauntlet match to earn the right to challenge him. Ricochet defeated JD McDonough. Bronson Reed defeated Ricochet. Sami Zayn defeated Bronson Reed. And Shinsuke and Chad Gable to punch his ticket to WrestleMania.
But did he really beat Chad Gable?
Get the conspiracy out. Get the red tape.
Yeah. Supposedly, Gable's shoulders weren't down for the 3 count, but the referee couldn't see it. So there's a possibility, especially since the tag team match that was announced doesn't involve Chad Gable, but it does involve Alpha Academy, that they could add him to the match and make it a triple threat.
Yeah, they are pushing really hard on this Chad Gable storyline. Like the promos he's cutting, the backstage videos. They're really making it like you want to see Chad Gable Gunther one more time. Whether it is at WrestleMania in a triple threat or whether, Gunther retains at WrestleMania and then at Backlash goes against Chad Gable. Not 100% sure, but you've got to do the match now at this point.
Yeah, and the sooner it happens, the better, because you've got to start the plan to take the title off of Gunther as soon as possible, so you can then begin to transition him towards a world title, because we know that there is a Germany Premium Live event coming up that you're almost certainly going to see him in a world title match.
Mm.
Whether it's as champion or challenging for the championship, He's going to have his Rhea Ripley moment.
Yeah, and I don't know. Some people are quite torn whether it's going to be a Sami or a Chad who takes the title, or somebody else entirely different. For me, it's just a matter of when, I guess, because you got to be counting down the days at this point.
Yeah, it's. I think it happens at WrestleMania. I think they will add Chad Gable, and I think Chad Gable will win, and I think it'll be by pinning Sami Zayn. Then that way you can still protect Gunther and his momentum, but you move the title off of him, and then you move him up the card. And then, I don't know, maybe have him drafted to SmackDown and have him chase after Cody or something.
Yeah. I could also see Drew McIntyre Gunther, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're not that concerned about the alignments these days, and
both of those guys flunk.
Yeah. And yeah, so I could see it, but I think if Gunther does challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship, it's going to be because Drew McIntyre got cashed in on.
Fair.
And it would be Damian Priest that would be the victim of Gunther.
I think if that's the case, you can pretty much just hand the title over at that point. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with the Intercontinental title first. You know, we are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, thinking about where Gunther could be in a little while. You mentioned the Tag Team Championship match. We will talk about that when we get back from our entrance theme. But it does relate to the entrance theme, as one of the competitors trying to earn a spot into that match is none other than The Miz. And that is whose theme we're playing for you right about now. I came to play. There's a price to pay. And you're back to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh. Tag Team Championship on the line in a, what's the official, 6-pack ladder match. Judgment Day will be defending against 5 teams, 3 from Raw, 2 from SmackDown. We know the competitors. From the Raw side, it will be one of Alpha Academy or the New Day, one of the Creed Brothers or DIY, and let's just say Awesome Truth. That one's pretty much a lock.
Yeah. This should be interesting depending on which teams they pick for SmackDown. Because this could be your... Why haven't we ever had a title get split via a ladder match scenario that you've always been pitching?
Hey, look, it's a perfect time.
Yeah. I know a lot of people were upset that they made an announcement about the tag titles, but didn't create new titles or didn't announce SmackDown titles.
You specifically go out of the way to include Raw teams and to include SmackDown teams. The Judgment Day have feuds going all over the place. There's, 4 titles that are going to be hanging above the ring. There's plenty of room for tomfoolery.
Yep, unless they decide that's when they're going to introduce new titles, and then whichever brand doesn't get the titles will then get new titles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of just want to see like the Awesome Truth on one ladder, pulling at titles, and then like I don't know what tag teams are on SmackDown at the moment. But one of them pulling on the blue titles, and then they all fall off with one set of titles.
Yeah, I think that's the most obvious way to go about it, and it's what I'm hoping for. Obviously, right? I've been pitching for it for a while. It's what I want.
Yeah. Well, since they changed to the Velcro backings, it is a more likely outcome than it was in the past when they were actually snapped, because it was harder to get loose. But I don't know. I could see them maybe doing that, or I could see them being stubborn and just crowning like a new champion in the match, and then the other brand gets a title announced on this Raw or SmackDown afterwards.
Yeah, that's
and
also...
then they have a tournament to Backlash.
Yeah, it's also an option, right? Especially if they are going to go with what they've done for the men's and the women's, and they're going to go with a World Tag Team Championship and a Heavyweight Tag Team Championship. whatever they want to go, or WWE, sorry, Tag Team Championship, is to avoid the whole Raw and SmackDown conundrum, where we have titles swapped back and forth. Couple of different options around the place.
Absolutely. But yeah, I do think if they do design new titles, it will definitely be WWE Tag Team Championships, World Tag Team Championships, harking back to the older days.
It's sad that you say the older days, and I'm like, it wasn't
yeah,
that long ago.
I have to go. Yeah, I mean it's been near 15 years since they unified the titles.
Ugh.
It happened at WrestleMania 26, just before WrestleMania 26, I think it was. Which means it is technically 15 years ago.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe the Judgment Day retain one of the two. I don't know. I feel like the Judgment Day's storyline is with R-Truth and the Awesome Truth and finishing that piece out. And so I'll be interested to see how that plays. I feel like that's almost your Raw Tag Team Championship piece. And then, yeah, it is just who on the SmackDown side, or maybe one of the other Raw teams heading over to SmackDown if they do win those titles.
Yeah. I also think we're also starting to see maybe the end of the Judgment Day storyline.
Whoa.
Well, they acknowledged Dominic Mysterio's wedding and have completely ignored for several weeks now that they had been this whole story of Dom and Ray together. I really think that they are maybe beginning the outs for that one. I think it is in its ninth inning, unlike what Cody said about the Bloodline story, because the Bloodline story is only on the 7th inning.
Stop using baseball analogies.
Well, once Roman loses the title, that's when it hits the 7th inning stretch. And
that means we're near the end?
There's still 2 more innings. It's just a break in between the top and the bottom of the 7th inning. I think that's when he loses the title, he'll go away for a few months. Maybe there'll be a match between Rock and Cody if, say, Rock does stay aligned with the Bloodline, which would be a dang big match for Cody. And then maybe a few months down the road, after leaving the Bloodline leader list and trying to come back, and then they don't trust him, they kick him out or something, and then he has to slowly begin to realize what a, again, D-bag he's been the last 5 years, and try to actually start repenting for it. And just to eventually get to where he is a face again and is actually made up with his family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to see. Obviously, that Bloodline story is the main event, the main big story throughout the WWE. So, it's not going to just disappear one night for sure.
Yeah. Heck, we even have another offshoot of it with Jey Uso challenging Jimmy.
Yeah, match we thought we're going to get pretty much not necessarily locked in yet, but it's on the table.
Yeah. It'll definitely happen. I think it'll be a maybe the opener for night 1. And then we get basically open and ending of both shows having to do with the Bloodline, basically.
Yeah.
With Seth's honorary status in that story. Because I think what I could see is night 1 opening with Jimmy and Jay, closing with the tag team match.
Mm-hmm.
Night 2, opening with Seth Drew, ending with, obviously, Cody Roman.
I think that's the case. I'm pretty confident.
Which is a shame, because I do think Bayley does deserve to main event one of the nights. But unfortunately, the story of the Bloodline is just too strong.
Yeah, you've got both the story of the Bloodline and The Rock, and neither of those things are not main eventing. But yeah, I think maybe with Jimmy and Jay, Jay's put the challenge down. Maybe Paul Heyman doesn't want Jimmy distracted. So maybe he's like, don't accept the offer. And then we might see a few attacks here and there to goad him into taking the challenge. But by the time WrestleMania rolls around, that match is going to be booked.
I expected on SmackDown that it'll be accepted, and it'll be accepted on Jimmy's behalf by Roman Reigns.
Alrighty.
And or The Rock.
Some high-up ranking member of the Bloodline.
Yeah.
And then another storyline just to mention, we got, 4 or 5 minutes left in the show. We got a United States Championship as well. Logan Paul is currently holding it. And yeah, he's going up against seemingly Randy. There's also Kevin Owens. There's also Grayson Waller, Austin Theory. There's a few people floating around. But what we might not know the exact combination, but we know the exact combination will happen on top of a giant Prime bottle printed on the canvas.
I'm fine with that. I mean, you have the advertisements in boxing, UFC, MMA. It makes sense. It gets them an extra revenue space, and yeah, it's a stupid bottle of Logan Paul's company, but I mean, there are worse things it could be, I suppose. And
could be sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
There are some sponsorships I would even would take a Raid sponsorship over before I'd take that. But yeah, it's fine. I don't have an issue with the sponsorship. I'm looking forward to whatever match Logan Paul has. Obviously, we're predicting for months it would be LA Knight. That's not happening. I'm down for a Randy Orton versus Logan Paul match. I'm down for a triple threat involving Kevin Owens. I'm down for a championship scrabble match involving all 5 people that we mentioned, plus anybody else they want to throw in.
Yeah, it's always so easy on the road to WrestleMania like this when you've got intercrossing feuds and you've got multiple people going after titles to just book a multi-man, right? Like we were talking about Gunther's title, and instead of the multi-man, they went with the gauntlet match to determine a number 1 contender, but maybe it'll still end in a triple threat. We'll have to wait and see. And then you look at the tag team titles and you're like, man, there's so many competitors. Boom, multi-man. Oh man, Logan Paul and his title, there's so many competitors. Multi-man? Or they just end up going the classic 1v1. All I know is that Randy Orton will be involved. I think that's the most obvious part.
Yeah, I agree. It's just I think it'll be definitely a lot of fun to watch how it plays out. And I think the match should be pretty good regardless of what the format it is.
Mm. And then, yeah, I guess with the last 2 remaining minutes, is there anything that you specifically wanted to talk about as you rapidly scroll through the results? Rejog that memory.
I guess we're going to be... I guess Dakota Kai's returning to the ring next week, I suppose.
Yeah. I think this is the start of Bayley going through damage control. It really felt like if the odds were going to be stacked against her, then it was like, you have Bayley versus Dakota Kai here, then you got Bayley versus Kairi, then you got Bayley versus Asuka, eventually leading to your Bayley versus Io match. I don't know if we're going to get them week in, week out, or if we're going to fit them all in, or what's going to happen, or are we going to just go against the Kabuki Warriors in a tag match, find ourselves a tag team partner? I don't know, but I think Bayley is going to run the gauntlet leading up to a WrestleMania.
Which we said would make sense, especially if they decide to do... maybe they'll have her face all 3 in successive weeks, and then then maybe I think there might be like 4 weeks, so maybe on the 4th week on the show before WrestleMania, maybe they'll have her do a gauntlet match against all 3, and if she wins that, she's guaranteed IO by herself.
Yeah, the only thing I would lean on the other side of that for is just because we do have the tag team match where we got that same sort of stipulation. If you win, then so-and-so's banned from ringside. But, it's not going to be the first time we have similar stipulations heading into a premium live event, especially not a WrestleMania.
Yeah. Or maybe they'll just, maybe they'll have her fight against, maybe a handicap match against the tag team champions, the Kabuki Warriors. And if she somehow wins that, then she can choose whatever stipulation she wants to the match.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be more palatable for you, and then instead of the same stipulation with the Cody match.
I like it. Let's see what they do this week with a match against Dakota Kai, because we have run out of time for this week. It's been great talking to you.
Baby.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D up, our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D up, or our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling RND up, and we will see you next week.